Hi, all. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Anuj Nadkarni, and I lead customer success at Okta. I'd like to introduce my three panelists for today: Matt Campbell from Associated Bank, Rick Peturzo from Grubhub, and Mike Sertoff from Guaranteed Rate. Before I get into the questions, I'd love for each of you to introduce yourself. Matt, I'll start up with you. Could you talk a little bit about who you are and what your role is at Associated Bank?
Sure. Thanks for having me today. Again, my name is Matt Campbell. I'm from Associated Bank. For those of you that are not familiar with Associated Bank, we're one of the larger mid-sized full-service banks. We operate 200 branches in the Midwest. We have about 37 billion in assets. Interesting fact: our oldest branch is in Neenah, Wisconsin. It dates back to 1861. We have over 5,000 employees and 1.3 million customer accounts. We're also the official bank of the Green Bay Packers. I'm an information security leader for identity and access management technology. I've been at Associated Bank a little over 12 years now, and I've been in IT for about 35 years. My team at the bank is responsible for privileged access management, secure password vaulting, user lifecycle management, application access automation, and application access governance for all of our colleagues, contractors, and customers. Although we use several products and solutions for all these areas, they're all integrated with Okta for single sign-on and adaptive multi-factor.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for the introduction. Rick, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Rick Peturzo. I am the Senior Manager of Applications and Systems at Grubhub under the corporate IT branch of the company. Our team manages essentially four pillars of the company. The first and foremost being application governance. So everything from making sure that an application is properly onboarded into Okta, it has SAML enforcement, we have an admin account, we have users that need access to the tool and get updated as needed. I also manage the endpoint team, so everything from OS patching on both Mac and Windows, as well as third-party application patching. The IT procurement team, as it relates to corporate IT. And then finally, the fourth pillar is our identity team. So everything from RBAC reviews to making sure we have automation in place to allow users to have the tools that they need to do their job. And a big important aspect of that is making sure that users can log into Okta properly. Their dashboard is loaded with the application systems that they need, and then those tools are governed in a secure manner.
And last but not the least, Mike Sertoff.
Thank you for having me today. So Mike Sertoff, Director of Identity and Access Management at Guaranteed Rate. And I have four areas of responsibility within the identity space, that being access, identity, identity governance, and privileged access management. And from the perspective that kind of Matt spoke about, we have our products all integrated with Okta, and Okta is our central place for single sign-on, adaptive MFA. And Okta really has two areas of responsibility within our organization, not only on the employee or our workforce side, but we're also using it on our customer and borrower side of our loan origination.
Great. Thanks for the introductions. Matt, I'd like to start off with you. You deployed Okta for over 500 million of your customers. I'd love to, and you talked a little bit about sort of your role and in the context of which you've deployed Okta, but I'd love to learn a little bit more about what specific business problems you were trying to solve with Okta and why Okta was your solution of choice.
Sure. As you said, we migrated. We're over 500,000 customers now in our Okta CIAM environment. We also use Okta for workforce, but in the CIAM specifically, what we're trying to do is, achieve independence of our back-end systems, so that when we, do need to migrate from one system to another, that we have the ability to manage those identities and not have to reset passwords or do any changes to their multi-factor. We do utilize threat insight and geolocation blocking inside of Okta, and along with adaptive MFA. As you know, from a customer standpoint, the friction that you put on a customer to utilize your system is, you want to minimize that friction as much as possible. And with adaptive MFA and our sign-in policies, we're able to, achieve about a 6% MFA rate, because most of our customers are using the same behaviors, the same devices, the same IPs and ISPs. So they're not challenged for MFA when they log in, if they're in those environments. And then if they do travel or they use a different device, then they're prompted MFA. And that is working very well. The other things that we were trying to do is ease administration. Our previous solution had, for our identity management, required a lot of extra administration and required some third-party integrations. With Okta, we can use the APIs that we have available to do mass imports. An example would be, we imported the 450,000 users by extending our API rate limits with a 100 parallel thread PowerShell script that it ran in about 8 hours. So that's something we couldn't achieve in our previous solution.
It's great to hear, especially how you addressed those certain challenges that you encountered, and how we were able to sort of extend your rate limits to get you past that hump. As part of your deployment journey, were there any other highlights that come to mind in terms of what went well, or what perhaps any roadblocks that we might have helped you address in order to get you to your goals?
Well, certainly whenever you migrate 450,000 users, you have some roadblocks, right? Or some challenges. We're getting through those, but one of the things I can share with you is we had a command center that from the migration happened over the weekend, and the command center was scheduled to be open from Monday through Friday that week, where we tripled our call center, and we were expecting a lot of calls, right? And we did get a lot of calls, but we ended up closing that command center on Wednesday and went to normal support methods because the migration went so smoothly. Within the first 4 or 5 days, we had over 350,000 users using our system through Okta, and they were utilizing, adaptive MFA to do that, and resetting their passwords and doing things that they would normally do. So it was a very, very successful migration.
Yeah, that's great to hear. It's absolutely a great success story. Thanks for sharing that, Matt. Mike, so moving on to you, you've had a similar journey on the customer identity front. So could you talk a little bit about what was the business challenge you were trying to solve, and in particular, how did Okta's customer success, customer first team help you with that?
The challenges that any company is going to face is initially that user migration, and how do you tackle getting that large volume of customers that are on your old identity platform onto your new. So similar to Matt, we worked with Okta, and at the same time, we also had a bunch of other projects going on at the same time. So we were able to partner with Okta, and they did suggest to us a strategic partner that they work with, that we actually brought on to our project to help with that migration. So with their extended capabilities, we were able to focus on multiple things and use them to execute that build out of our migration strategy. But one of the things that we ran into that we definitely needed some help with was, migration of the passwords over to the new platform. And the reason why it was a problem for us is because the encryption that was being used on our side was not supported as an encryption that Okta could easily migrate. So what we had to do is use the password inline hook and then build connections into our older platform, so that when users were logging into the Okta platform, we were able to compare those passwords and then migrate them real time as they were logging into the platforms. So essentially, we were able to achieve a very seamless migration once we turned the platform and switched the platforms over to Okta. And, similar to Matt, what we ended up doing is spinning up what we called hypercare for a 2-week period of time that we ended up shutting down early, similarly. And we shut it down a week early because we just weren't seeing the volume that we thought we were going to see because everything was going very smooth, which is a testament to the time, the effort, the detail that we spent into focusing on making sure that user experience happens successfully. And the success of that is definitely in part to the partnership that we had with our customer care and success team at Okta, because they were able to bring forward experts that we were able to use and utilize to help us put our plan together and begin to phase in, because our process was definitely phased, 3 phases that we went through. And the initial one was to build our applications, get them ready to integrate with the Okta platform using the OIDC technology. And which is another reason why we chose Okta as a platform, is because it brings the modern integration technologies, protocols that you should be using, inside the IDM space. And what that allowed us to do was then integrate with our partners, doing an IDP to IDP integration and offer up our applications as a service to our partners, which was a critical step for us. And the reason we went there first is because that did not require a user migration, but it did require us to migrate and move all of our technologies over to the Okta platform first. And that's what we wanted to achieve. So with the partnership with Okta, they were able to bring in architects and experts and really work with us to show us, how we would achieve these capabilities on a modern auth platform that we were looking for to bring our company, to the next level of identity and auth.
Yeah, that's really good to know, Mike. And especially like a lot of our customers, I mean, perhaps some of them know this, but some of them don't, is when you get Okta, you have access to a large suite of resources that come with it, right? So you've got your products, your architecture teams, your professional services, if you choose to use them, that you do have access to using a customer success manager. So it's really great to know that you leaned on your customer success manager to get access to some of those resources to make you successful. So thank you for doing that. Were there any sort of top 2 or 3 learnings that you would like to share with the audience? Something that went really well that you would recommend others adopt when they are embarking on a journey similar to yours?
So bring the customer success team in early, because you want to make sure that the way you're architecting your system is going to line up to what Okta can deliver for you. So bring them into the roadmap, bring them into your project planning, bring them up front. That's, number one in my mind. And then any of the challenges that you see or pitfalls that you see down the road, bring them out, talk to the teams, bring those teams together, not only internally, externally, bring everybody together. So that way you can determine what your approach is going to be, and then obviously execute on it. And then from a learning perspective, one of the things, that we ran into early on, like I mentioned before, was really trying to understand what are the capabilities of the migration, what can Okta do, and that early learning was, making sure that if you're in an encryption mode with your passwords, make sure that you have an understanding of what you're doing behind the scenes so that you can come up with a plan to execute later. Essentially password inline hook was the key for us. One of the things that we started to really think about was the customer experience around login and how we actually manage that login experience. And there's really 2 aspects of it. There's their login page and there's also the registration page. And what we found is that the login page Okta hosted gave us enough extensibility for us to utilize that. And also it gave us the benefit of not having to maintain the Okta widget across the different applications across our environment. So one of the reasons we went with that is ease of use, simple maintenance. And the other thing that we found is that we could offload the registration piece that was going to require heavy modification and heavy integration to our workflows that we could offload that piece and build that into the applications themselves. And then we were able to, from the Okta hosted login page, just link directly to our registration process. So we found a way to do best of both worlds and give us the ability to give the users the experience that we wanted, and then also leverage the out-of-the-box Okta features that gave us the ease of maintenance.
So moving a little bit from the customer identity side to the workforce identity, Rick, you've used workforce identity fairly extensively at Grubhub. Could you talk a little bit about what business challenges on the workforce front what you were trying to solve, why you chose Okta, and what that experience was like?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so Okta is our primary single sign-on solution here at Grubhub. And we essentially service three customers internally: our employees, our contractors, and our care partners. Each and every single one of those identity types have their own unique challenges. Care partners can be located anywhere outside of the United States. Contractors kind of in the same light. And so what Okta allows us to do is, no matter what type of identity you are, you still need to have a proper sign-on method. So before you, for the morning, you wake up, you open up your laptop to start your day, Okta allows us to make sure that those applications are secure, and then the users that are actually logging into Okta are who they say they are, right? And so we do that a number of different ways. One, on the application side, we try to enforce SAML. So that is our first and foremost priority. And that may or may not work out depending on the application, but in terms of what we try to look for, it is essential. Secondly, we try to make sure that we have a good business understanding of who needs access into that application. So are the users that need access, are they gaining that access? And then what we do internally is we work on trying to figure out how can we automate a lot of this. And so when you look at a tool like a Zendesk or a Salesforce or a Google, we try to automate a lot of these assignment policies. So if you come in under a certain department or a certain team or even under a certain title, you have a mapped out RBAC that says, I get this role, I get this group in your various apps. And we try to automate that upon creation, upon modification, and then if we do need to disable or delete, we do that as well. And so Okta allows us to do that very easy in terms of we feel very secure knowing that if someone does depart the company and an application is properly onboarded into Okta with SAML, that end user will not be able to log back in, right? And so that's where Okta is really, really strong. Some really, really neat features inside of Okta that we are utilizing are, things like safe listing IP. So if we have an office overseas and we know they're coming in from a certain office with an IP range, we can go ahead and safe list that range and then guarantee that that the IPs are safe listed and secure. We are enabling adaptive MFA, and it's really a kind of a balance where we don't want to make the end user experience painful, where each and every time they need to remember passwords, they need to go ahead and use their fingerprint or something like a YubiKey. But at the same time, we want to make sure that their access is secure. So we have a combination of passwords. We have a combination of multi-factor authentication. And then we are currently exploring passwordless options. So if you look at a Windows laptop, you have the Hello key. On the Mac side, you have your fingerprint scanner, similar to what you have in iPhones. And it's really given us the ability to, one, keep our environment secure, but also allowing our end users to safely access the tools they need and really make that user experience easy. So there's always that fine line between security and ease of use, and it's something that's really neat that Okta allows us to do. And so going back to the application side, so we look at a number of different things, making sure that we can govern that app, that we can enforce it by SSO, that we know who the business owners are of this app, that we make sure that the owners have, or the users have, the access that they need, and then if we can automate that access. And so Okta helps us provide a lot of that functionality.
That's great. And I know, and the other part of it sort of related to, in addition to the features and functionality, which, I'm really happy to hear about all the positive feedback you have on that front. I know you work fairly closely with our customer success team as well, and sort of they're very engaged as part of the process. Could you talk a little bit about how you've leaned on them and what resources they've been able to bring to the table in order to make you successful?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm very impressed by our relationship together, Okta and Grubhub. So, just speaking from the Grubhub side, I know we have two dedicated account representatives, and we meet every single month. We talk about analytics, we talk about utilization, we talk about new features, and I think it's wonderful. I think it allows us to have an insight, and it gives us a sense of priority as well. Okta has very many clients, right? And the time and effort that's kind of taken out of both sides of our days kind of shows the value in our partnership. Just recently, especially with what we've been seeing in a lot of the news lately with the amount of hacks going on, man in the middle attacks. We recently started up a conversation with our account representative, just looking to explore how exactly are we securing our Okta environment? What are some of the new functionality that we've been hearing in last year's Octane and this upcoming Octane that might be available to us? Things like passwordless functionality, things like creating groups that would require like a YubiKey or a physical key. And what's been nice is literally overnight, we were able to get on a call with some senior level engineers on the Okta side and reviewing that functionality, talking about how that works, not only on the Okta side. So it was really nice and reassuring to see that Okta itself are using the same functionality, but also explaining why this may work for Grubhub. And so because of that, we're starting to explore a lot more of these features. And we hope to continue. So yeah, never had any issues exploring assistance, getting questions answered. And again, kind of going back to kind of showing the value of the relationship between both companies.
It kind of is a good segue into the next part of my discussion, which was more around sort of the forward-facing features and products that might excite you. So forward-facing Okta products and features that might excite you. So Matt, I'll start with you again. What specific products and features, capabilities are you seeing in Okta that you're most excited about that meets your and Associated Bank's needs?
Well, right now we're running on Okta Classic on both our customer or our workforce side and our CIAM side for our customers, and moving over to Identity Engine. It seems that all of the big releases, right, are coming out in the Identity Engine. So we're working on migrating over there. We have a lot of agents though. We utilize the Active Directory agent, the IWA agent, the on-prem MFA agent, the MFA agent, I guess. So we have to do a lot of validation that all of those will work in the new environment. Of course, the IWA agent has to be taken out for desktop agentless single sign-on, but the rest of them we've been testing. We know that they're there. We have over 750 applications in our workforce, so every one of them has a custom application sign-in policy. Some require MFA, some don't. Some are internally accessible, some are not. So that's a little bit of a challenge because that migration, doesn't migrate those over. But the ability inside of the Identity Engine to use APIs to manage those sign-in policies per application is a big feature for us, along with some factor sequencing and some other things that we're looking at doing. So that's probably what we're most excited about, and it's going to be a large migration just because of the number of people that are impacted.
Rick, what about you?
Yeah, so I can actually relate to what Matt had just said when he mentioned the amount of applications at Associated Bank. So Grubhub has just shy of 800 unique applications and systems that are being used at any given time. So one area that I'm very interested in Okta continuing to build out, I think it's already very robust, and that is the marketplace, the app marketplace. So when you see these partnerships that Okta has with a lot of the various vendors out there, everybody from Google to Salesforce to you name it, we have an easier time onboarding an application for proper sign-on when an application is in that marketplace. And I feel that Okta has taken a lot of that back end effort that's involved, whether it's API type management, whether it's some kind of attribute syncing, and if an application is inside of a marketplace, that just saves us a lot of time. So I'm really interested to see kind of what the next evolution of that marketplace is, whether it's continue to expand the partnership with all the various vendors or just continue to make the integrations very robust or a combination of both. So I'm very particularly interested in that. And the second very, very, very big piece is what coincides with application onboarding, and that is the LCM module, so lifecycle management. So, we try to automate as much as possible at Grubhub. Like I talked about this earlier. So we create the account, we update an account, and then we either remove or disable the account. And with lifecycle management, one area of interest is, all of our various applications have certain very unique needs. It could be something as easy as I just need an account with my first name and last name, or I may have something that might be a little bit more robust in like a Zendesk or a Salesforce, where I need to be tied into like a group and a role, and then maybe a certain type of elevated account. And so with Okta LCM, I'm very, very interested in seeing how easy Okta can make that for us. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
So I've been like taking sort of mental notes on what the key themes I've heard in this presentation, right? What has worked well for all of you as you went through with your journeys. And it sounds like there's sort of three things that stand out. One is understand the goals that you're trying to achieve and how the product capabilities map to that. So that's number one. Second one is lead on your account team a lot and leverage all of the resources that the Okta account team and the customer first team brings to the table in particular. And then sort of have an eye on the future with regards to what capabilities on Okta's roadmap might align better with your needs at the moment. Right? So I think those are kind of the three big things. Anything else any of you would like to add to that?
Well, I would just like to say that that you do get great benefits by having Okta as in your workforce and in your CIAM, because things that you learn inside of the workforce can apply to your CIAM and vice versa, and it's a lot easier to test new features, new functions on a small group of your workforce than it is on your customers, because you certainly don't want to put your customers at risk. We don't want to put our colleagues at risk either, but it's a little bit easier if you have them both, so you can apply things back and forth between the two different types of orgs.
Thanks, Mike, Rick, and Matt, for your time and for your insights. And thank you to the audience. I hope you found this conversation valuable. And as you are going on your customer identity journeys, please remember to reach out to your account team and to your customer success team to see how we can help you. Thank you.